If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. Most of you know that. 5 teams, 7 years. Hope everybody had a terrific 4th of July holiday weekend. Hopefully you had a lot of daddy sodas. Goodness knows I did. But here's the reality of the Even Money Betting Podcast, and all, by the way, of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. The show must go on. It always does. We never take a week off. We never miss an episode because a lot of you count on us, right? Like, this is considered the #1 betting podcast, NFL betting podcast in the country. So we want to make sure that those of you this week after the holiday weekend, that you can get better, because what are we, 3 weeks away or something from the Hall of Fame game and being able to bet on NFL preseason games, which is amazing. It'll be here before you know it. So very much looking forward to it. Love betting NFL preseason and talking about it. Obviously, we've been getting Steve's games of the week for different weeks of the NFL season in recent weeks. You can check me out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. Love those of you that rate and review the show. Remember, if you want to ask Steve a question, just rate and review the show and then send me that screenshot, Ross at rosstucker.com. You'll go to the top of the list to be able to ask Steve a question, which is a very valuable opportunity. Steve could be like a consultant for betting. It's amazing. Love all the new YouTube viewers, by the way, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. The best way to do it really is to just probably go ahead and, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you turn the notifications on so that when there's a new episode, you are made aware right away. Very excited about today's episode. A little bit of a change up, but we reference them often. We reference him often. I'm talking about sportsinjurycentral.com. The website is SICScore.com. And in particular, Dr. David Chao, Pro Football Doc. He was on about a month ago, maybe a little bit less than a month ago, on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. We talked about, 18 games and all kinds of stuff as it relates to the health. But what people don't realize is the impact he has had on betting in the NFL. It has been significant. Check him out on social media at Pro Football Doc. Dr. Chao, really appreciate the time, man. Good to talk with you. Good to talk with you here on the Even Money Podcast for once.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be on, and thanks for having me. Since this is the Even Money Podcast, what would the odds have been when you and I first met and you hated me when I was doing the free agent physical on you, that we would be friends and be doing this in the future? That might have been long odds.
What's funny? I know that there's a decent amount of overlap between the Ross Tucker Football Podcast and Even Money Betting Podcast. I don't think we've talked about that here on the Even Money Betting Podcast. So before we get to, the advantages that Dr. Chao and his group has provided to the likes of Steve Fezzik and Billy Walters and more, Dr. Chao and I go way back. It was 2005. I had been released by the Buffalo Bills after a back surgery, and then I got hurt twice more during camp, by the way. And so every week I would have a different tryout, free agent visit during the season. It's really these teams, Dr. Chao could speak to this, but they have like a ready list. And Dr. Chao was the team orthopedic surgeon for the San Diego Chargers. And what I remember is, and this is really interesting, Dr. Chao, the wide variance in what those tryout visits were like. And in particular, the medical. There were some teams I would go to And I'd fill out a form, and the doctor would say, "How's your back feeling?" I'd be like, "Yeah, it's fine." He's like, "Okay." Whereas I think any injury I had like ever gotten, you had me x-ray like 10 things. You might have been the most thorough physical that I got while I was doing that.
Well, here's what I would say. First of all, it is absolutely true that medical physicals aren't all created equal. And even at the combines, all 32 teams, excuse me, don't rate guys the same way medically. Just like all 32 GMs don't rate a same player the same for their talent. And yes, we're thorough, and I was trying to be thorough, and I get it at the time. You're like, what gives here? But I hope that people listening to this will see that it's the same kind of thorough nature of going through all the injuries for the analysis of teams and betting advantages, which is why we love working with you and Fezzik and Billy Walters and others, and why we collaborate, because you guys don't have the time, the energy, or the insider knowledge base from being medical in the NFL to get all that information. And we try and provide all of that to you and Steve Fezzik so that you can make even better decisions on the Even Money podcast and use that as an advantage. Now, we're not handicappers, but at Sports Injury Central across 5 years, and we have it documented against the spread. We're over 55% on the closing line spread, just picking the advantages based on injuries when there's an injury mismatch. And so imagine what you and Fezzik can do with that, right? That's kind of the idea, to make that even better.
Okay, so let's get into that. Because I think I want to make sure people understand. And I guess there's two ways to go about this. Let's start, okay? This is not what Dr. Chao set out to do initially. You know, you were the Chargers team orthopedic for a long time, but then initially you just thought you could be a media personality and a resource. You were basically providing video injury analysis and informational injury analysis as a member of the media, the same way Mike Pereira and Dean Blandino and Gene Steratore do officiating analysis. You were doing injury analysis, I think, before they even made gambling legal in the United States.
That's absolutely true. And here's how it started. And Ross, you've met my wife, and if I don't credit her here in the right way, I might get grief if she ever hears this podcast. She's the one who started it. So we had boy-girl twins late. I got married late in life, and then whatever, decided, okay, I can't keep doing this, and the Chargers are leaving town anyways. And so for the first time ever, I'm sitting on my couch watching football with my wife, and a guy goes down, and the announcer says, well, that looked bad, but he's walking off the field. I think he's going to be okay. And I'm like, no, he's done for the season. He tore his ACL. My wife turns to me very kindly. She makes me tell everyone it was kindly, and says, tell it to someone who cares. And she signed me up for Twitter. I was like, what's Twitter? I had no idea. I didn't do any of that stuff. And so I just started playing with it on Twitter. I had no goals of what it would be. It was just something fun and interesting to do. And it picked up steam very early on, with other players following and developing a little presence. And even the Chargers called me and said, is this really you? Why are you doing this? So it sort of met something that there was a room for this. And why do I call it Pro Football Doc? Because I copied from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. And Mike Pereira has been nice enough. Whenever I described what I do, I said, I'm the medical Mike Pereira. You know, he tells you why this is or isn't a holding call or what the referees are looking at. I'm giving you the insider knowledge stuff on injuries. And you're right, it was just fantasy at the time. It's when gambling became legal that Craig Dato and I formed Sports Injury Central to cover all sports and give people information, injury analysis to help them not only with fantasy, not only with DFS, but with traditional wagering.
And prop bets.
Prop bets,
And
yes.
prop bets, yeah. So, okay,
And
so
and
let's,
and and in game.
right, and in game. All right, so there's a lot there, okay? So you guys are over 50% on closing line spread. So let's talk about that. how many games for the people that haven't checked you out yet? Um, Obviously, Fezzik's all over it. I look at it. How many games are you typically placing a bet on during the week? So go through, Doc, your process. And are you placing a bet on every NFL game and you're at 55% on closing line spread? Is it only when you see an edge? Walk me through, how many games you're typically doing and how people really can get that information. I mean, there's a lot of people right now that are like, wait a minute, 55% on closing line spread, like over a 5-year period. I want in on that.
Well, I'll be perfectly transparent. Last year was our worst year ever. We were at 54%. Okay. And it was our worst year ever last year. And the number of games depends on where the mismatches are. And if there's we do individual player SICScores, and then we do positional SICScores. Then we have literally SICScores on a team's run offense against the opposition's team run defense. Now you can see where that can be very helpful on props and DFS and other things, but then we accumulate all that together and then have a team SICScore. And we have an algorithm or formula to adjust the score. Norv Turner helped us create the value system in terms of the effectiveness of the teams. He's an investor in Sports Injury Central. And so if there's a mismatch there, that's how, in terms of the team scores, that's how we do it. And we're definitely stronger when, let's say, the injuries are to two key offensive linemen on the offensive line, which ends up with a shuttle of the right tackle flipping the left tackle and the right guard kicking the right tackle. Now you have 3 or 4 or 5 positions new and different, what we call cluster injuries. We're less effective when it's on a quarterback, with the world knows he's not playing and the line has moved already based on the quarterback injury. It's the hidden injuries and the deeper dive injuries that give us the advantage, not what's known to the public. And we look at what it should be based on injuries. And just based on injuries, that's how we get to where we are. So the number of games on an average, let's say NFL, let's say a full slate of 16, it might be 5. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes it's a little bit more. Okay, so the average is about 5 plus or minus, sometimes 6, 7, depending on the week. So what's typical is even when we get to the playoffs, the wild card round, we will usually have 2, 3, maybe 4. By the time we get to the divisional round, we might have 1. By the time you get to the conference championships, we may have none. And the Super Bowl, not. Why? Because if the injured team is losing, they lost in the wild card round, the advantage is now done. You can't keep playing that advantage in the playoffs, right? Because they get knocked out. So if we're right and they get knocked out, like in the playoffs, one of their big takes was we didn't take the money line, we took the points. Washington Commanders, the Detroit Lions were not going to be able to, their defense was not going to be able to hold up in that playoff. But then the Lions lose. Now we don't have the Lions to bet against anymore, right? Because that advantage is gone. So the healthier teams survive in the playoffs. So it varies week to week, but about 5, 6 a week is the norm.
More great stuff right after this. Hope everybody had an amazing holiday weekend. Man, I love long weekends. Nothing better. You just buy some Labatt, you drink it, you upload your receipt, and you rack up points for exclusive merch. That's a good weekend. You get points for every purchase at any store, bar, stadium. Doesn't matter. Buy beer, get gear. Rewards.labattusa.com. So, okay, the next part of that. How much of a disparity, like how do you rank the injuries and the health of a team, and how much of a disparity does there have to be for you guys to say, okay, this is a play, this is a go?
Well, there's a lot of things that come into play and a lot of different factors that come into play, like for anything. But in general, we started with saying a 10-point advantage was enough to play. But we did regression analysis on our games over the years, and eight actually is the better number where there is a defining line in terms of play. And so what we do is grade and here's how we grade teams and so forth. For example, we don't put the same importance on a left tackle as a left guard in the run game versus the pass game, right? And we may not put the same importance on a left tackle who's just a guy, and left tackle two is almost as good versus left tackle one being the guy in San Francisco, Trent Williams, whatever, and there's a big drop off to the next guy. So we rate all the positions and then put it into the formula, and then we get a number. But 8 points is what we found to be actionable typically.
Okay, but how are you doing the grading? Like what do the numbers look like? You're grading every player
Yes.
and then
So
adding those up. Walk me through how you grade every player and then because people listening or watching youtube.com/Ross Tucker, they don't know what an 8 point difference is. When you say 8 points, they're thinking the spread on the game.
no, it's not the spread. It is not related to the spread. It's the overall health. So we grade out of 100, and probably no one is 100 unless you're a fresh rookie and you got nothing. And it's kind of like a Madden score. Okay, you might be 99. So it's kind of like a Madden score. So what we say is if you're healthy, this is your Madden score. But if you're not healthy, this is your quote Madden score, and it's your health sports injury central SIC score, player score as an individual. And so what we do to make it also easier, we color code it. So above 85 is green. Most players are in the 90s to be healthy. And from 85 to 60 is yellow, and lower than 60 is red. And basically in terms of their performance, to make it overly simplified, is this guy 50% healthy, 75% healthy, 90% healthy, or whatever? Most of the scores are in the 90s, but the unhealthy guys start getting in the 80s, 70s, and 60s, and positionally and otherwise. And then we put it in a formula and amalgamate the individual players on offense and defense, and you end up with a team score.
And then when one team score is 8 points better than the other team score,
Yes,
regardless of what the point spread is on the game
correct.
publicly, that's a play. That's a go. Like, hey, I don't care if they're a 7 point favorite, 7 point underdog, they have a 10 or 12 or whatever point injury advantage. We're taking them because we don't think that is built into the betting line.
Yes, correct. So we basically say, based on the health, this might be what the spread is, but this is what the spread is. And that's what the 8 points spits out for you. So it's a little more complicated than just 8 points. I mean, do we factor in, one team has, 3 games in 10 days, the other team has full rest. And the other thing that we factor in sometimes often is the recency of the injury. For example, if a team has been injured for a long time and their performance on the field has shown over 4 weeks, then the odds makers factor it in the performance. So the 8 points is in general, but there are specific circumstances when what we call the deltas, 1 week to the next. And I'm not trying to get too complicated, but it's not just as simple as looking at the team score on our website and, oh, that's now definitely a play. If that team score is low and stale, the line probably has been factored in over time. If this is a new drop of 5 points, that may be very significant because it's not factored into the line yet based on their previous performance. So I'm trying to make it simple, 8 points, but there are other factors that go into it.
Curious, because you and I both know that the publicly available information is not all of the information, and that basically midway through the year, every guy has something. I guess you just kind of have to go off of what is significant enough that the team felt compelled to put it on the injury report, which means it's of some consequence as opposed to the things that guys maybe are just keeping to themselves or just dealing with getting treatment on, but they're not on the injury report.
Yeah, well, we try and look at primary sources of information. We certainly look at injury reports, but we don't rely on injury reports. Look, about a month ago, I had Bill Belichick on the podcast, and he was thankfully very complimentary of what we do at Sports Injury Central, and we talked about it. And look, Bill Belichick, there's a lot of coach speak out there, right? And Bill Belichick is probably the only guy the guy who gets accused of coach speak or got accused of coach speak all the time, but he never did coach speak with injuries. He just didn't speak. He just put everyone with every little something on the injury report and said questionable, and it was within the rules, and he wouldn't answer any questions. So there's no coach speak. One guy that's really good, and I say this in a very complimentary way, at coach speak is John Harbaugh. I've never met John Harbaugh. I don't know him personally. I know his brother, Jim, very well. Love Jim Harbaugh. I'm sure I would like John Harbaugh if I met him. But we look at it, and he's famous for coach speak. If you go back a couple of years, every week in December, he would say, Lamar Jackson looks better this week. We think he's going to practice and play. We're optimistic. And we're at Sports Injury Central saying he's got an ankle bone bruise. He is not playing this week. And we did it 4 straight weeks, right? But there are other times when John Harbaugh tells you every little detail to win you over. I mean, it's their job. Okay. One NFL head coach told me, a friend of mine, I guess should I give his name? I
Don't
guess
say it. Don't say it.
don't say it. Okay, I won't say his name. But I said, I know what you do about injuries. He goes, what? He goes, you don't like to lie. He goes, nope, I do not like to lie. You're an honest guy. He goes, yep. And so you go to the podium after the game and you say, I don't know what happened to this guy. I don't know what happened to this guy. I don't know what happened to this guy. And then as soon as your interview is done, you go talk to the athletic trainer, team doctor, and figure out what happened. So you can honestly say with a straight face, you don't know. He goes, yep. that's how he handled at least the initial assessment of injuries. He's, yeah, I don't like to lie. So I can wait another 15 minutes to find out what the injuries are.
So what are the what are the options? Obviously, a lot of our listeners, the people that check us out on YouTube, they're looking for any edge they can get. It's documented. Billy Walters talks about how much he uses you guys. Fezzik talks about it. The people that want more, that they want to be better at it, they're looking to get every little edge like the NFL teams do. What are the options in terms of how people get this information from sportsinjurycentral.com? Are they buying a package? Like what are their options to get your
So
injury
this is what
information to
has
know what to
surprised.
play or not?
This is what has surprised us. We feel like our most valuable product, and actually it's fairly inexpensive, is the data package, where you get all the raw numbers and you get all the field views, the green and yellow, and visually can look at it. That's what we utilize to end up with what we think is an advantage. So we give you all the raw number data, but the picks are what people want to buy because it's more work to do the data. But I think the
Right.
data is so some of your audience may want the data. I mean, and that's cheaper than the picks, but the picks are by far the best seller. Look, we don't pretend to be Steve Fezzik. Fezzik, we have not won 2 straight Westgate tournaments. Okay, we don't pretend to be him. We work with him, but we give him injury information. He helps us. But what we do is what we tell Steve, for example, is if you like a team and the injury goes against you, that doesn't mean don't not take that, but maybe you need 1 unit or half a unit. But if you like a team and we say that's the healthier team by more than 8 points and it's a go, maybe you need 2 or 3 units on that game, right? I mean, we're one factor. We're not the only factor. The other way I look at it is where medical grade is one factor on whether to draft a player or not. It's not the only factor, right? Or the 40 time is one factor on drafting a player. It's not the only factor. We try and give you all the information about the injury side, and then you, Ross, and Steve Fezzik and your audience can do what they want with it and factor it in. We're not necessarily suggesting you blindly follow, because we're not professional handicappers. We're just doing it based off of injuries, and we're trying to blind the teams from, like traditional things. We don't take into consideration they've lost 3 straight times to this coach, or they're bad on the road or at home. We don't do that. We look at just the injury factor is our main input into the games and the sides.
Love it. You got to check him out on social media at Pro Football Doc, at SICScore. The website is SICScore.com. That stands for SportsInjuryCentral.com. You can check out the data package, the picks package. Listen, any information is good information when you're trying to beat the book. Thank you so much, Dr. Chao, for coming on Even Money. Really appreciate it.
And I appreciate that, it's a little loud in the background. I literally am in the lobby of a Holiday Inn Express. I'm with my son at a baseball tournament outside of Atlanta. And so, yes, this quote doctor did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So does that counteract being a doctor, or am I a double doctor now? But that old joke, I'm not a doctor. I am a doctor, and I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I don't know what that means.
I love it. Thanks, Dr. Chao.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.